Uh, Now I actually kind of miss wearing the tie. And back when I went the tie back in March, it made people for a brief second wonder what on earth did he do last night for him to look like that. I'm like, the answer is simple. I didn't do anything at all. Okay, so I guess my low, my high, my act of kindness. You know what? I'm gonna reach into something normally I wouldn't necessarily talk about for my low, but it is that time of year. I just feel really sad for Coach K and Duke. I actually watched the game with my folks last night. That's why this video is going to be coming out a little late. But man, you know what? That was the final before the final. Okay, I'll talk about Duke more in a second. I have to talk about Amphibia too, which is part of my high. And of course, family time, of course. And my act of kindness was, since I hung around my folks all day, I helped them out and helped them out if they need any help. So, there we go. I mean, full disclosure, my folks are fine. Family time is nice. Whether you're relaxing or, doing work, it's cool. So, good morning and happy Sunday, everybody. So first, I'll talk about this week's episode of Amphibia first. So this week we had another 11-minute segment episode. It was Sasha's Angels and Ohm Town Road. Pun right there. So Sasha's Angels, that's actually kind of hard to pronounce. Basically, this was an episode where, even though, yes, there is a clear bad guy with, King Andreas and everybody, and obviously the good guys, the Resistance, and Sasha, the Planners, everyone from Warwood, you name it. Apparently, there's actually a third group, an anarchist group, known as the Marauders. And apparently, they stole some of the supplies of the Resistance, and so the mission, pretty simple, is to get it back. But this episode really isn't more about Anne and Sasha per se, but the residents of Warwood as a whole, because they wind up getting captured and they have to get themselves out without the help of Anne or Sasha, which actually kind of makes sense you have an episode like this, if we're being honest. Because, yes, when it's all said and done, the final battle is going to feature Anne, Sasha, and Marcy. And to have one of them get hurt or captured, that'd be horrible. But if you don't feature, but it's very clear that Matt Brawley and the people behind Amphibia don't want, the three girls and the Planners too, to take center stage through it all. By all accounts, this is the final season. This is meant to be a casting call in a lot of ways. So much so that this is the first time I think we've seen Toady since probably the penultimate episode before True Colors. Toady voiced by nicest guy in the world extraordinaire, Jack McBrayer. And it's so funny. He's like, I'm going to be the lookout. To then being like, people better look out for my fish. He just snaps, and it's amazing. Yeah, I know. Obviously, Jack McBrayer gets typecast as a super duper nice guy. Seriously, if you want that attribute of Jack McBrayer shine, watch Wander Over Yonder. That was a good show. Aw. And now I miss Wander Over Yonder. Oh well, Craig McCracken finally finished the series in Kid Cosmic, so that's cool. So that episode, that was great. Everybody escapes. They blow up the Marauders, headquarters. That was awesome. And now we get to Ohm Town Road, which I had no idea there was even such an animal as an Ohm. Spelled Hohlm, I think. I completely spelled. I said the H first, like I forget how to spell. But apparently, ohms are like blind amphibians that only live, beneath the surface because they're essentially nocturnal creatures. And it turns out that the Anne and the planners had brought back a message from a vase that they found at the museum. Remember when Dr. Jan found the ancient amphibia writing? And it turns out they need to find the mother of ohms, and she'll know what to do. And the only ohms that we've seen throughout this whole series were those two siblings who tried to eat Polly and Sprig in the Quarrelers Pass episode. And it turns out they actually know a lot. And it turns out the siblings themselves were banished because they were fighting and like stuff got stolen, I think is what it was. I forget what happened. But they got banished, and so they're trying to get back in. Meanwhile, it turns out Andreas's forces are trying to drill into the Ohms territory, which is underground. And obviously the main gimmick, the main conflict, they have to try and stop the drill from getting to the city. And they do. And at first it seems like they're still not going to let those siblings in. But then Sasha stands up, and then first, the head Ohm lady, she's like, go now. And then she comes out and they're like, you know what, you got Moxie, go on in. And the episode ends with one of my all-time favorite cliches ever. It's like when two fan favorite characters, in this case Anne and Sasha, get together and fist bump each other, and the episode ends. Obviously on their way to seeing Mother Ohm. I'm not gonna lie, they wanted to hype us up for next week. And Matt Burley and the good folks behind Amphibia, you officially have our attention. Honestly, you've had our attention since June of 2019, but now you really have our attention. Actually, now you really, 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 really have our attention. Because now the series is slowly but surely starting to wrap up. Where it's going to go from here, I don't know, but I'm really excited. And speaking of things I'm excited about, totally not Mark, talked about Naruto again, specifically roughly the first half or so of the final war of the fourth Shinobi war arc, which I told you, from now on, it's nothing but war until the end of the series. And again, he's going to be reading the war for the next 100 or plus more chapters. So it's interesting to see what Mark is going to think of how the war ends, at least. But the one thing that Mark had talked about in his video that I really have to bring up as well, because, obviously, I read the manga. I saw the bits of anime that clearly weren't filler, because Naruto always had a problem with filler. I'll get into that and when I talk about my overall thoughts of the series. Oh, that's going to be fun. But one thing that Mark talked about is there really were a lot of flashbacks. And that turned him off. And he actually had a really good explanation as to how that was specifically working. Actually, pause. Let me bother me for a second. Hold on. Sorry. Someone was laying on the ground and wanted to set it back up. Where was I? Right. Basically, throughout Naruto, obviously the series is about Naruto. For the most part of the story, we are following Naruto and, various other characters closely, such as, Kakashi, Sasuke, Sakura, those people. Here's the thing that Mark brought up, and I really do have to emphasize he's completely correct about. Naruto has actually so many great characters, like Gaara, Rock Lee and Guy, Neji, Hinata, Choji, Shikamaru. Those characters are all so cool. You really wish you saw more of them. And throughout this war you do, but it's in flashbacks. Basically, if there was any sort of like character development that needed to be brought up, even for characters that were just introduced before the war started, like Jawari and the Ginkaku and Kinkaku brothers who were one of the reincarnated Shinobi, like they were all in flashbacks. And don't get me wrong, I like a good flashback if it serves to promote the story and in a way promote character development. The thing of it is, though, when Kishimoto first made Naruto, he really did that a lot. Like, a lot. And it didn't bother me, but I can totally see why it bothered Mark. Or totally not Mark, I should say. So, take that what you will. Remember, I'm in college. I'm in that depressing time of my life where, I'm struggling to get through school because I really wasn't good in school. I was barely okay at sports. Something needed like I gravitate towards this particular part of the manga because this is what I was specifically reading, as well as I have a fond memory of it, and I remember really liking it. And by all accounts, I still like it now. Honestly, if you are a fan of like character development through flashbacks and then bring it all together, because here's the thing, Kishimoto obviously brought it back to the present day, and the character development is complete for that specific character. That's awesome. But if you don't like how he did that, I get it. I totally do. Honestly, then again, I'm a simple guy. As long as it's a good story that I can be thoroughly entertained by, as well as see me something occasionally I've never seen before or don't see very often, I'm okay with it. So, yeah. Honestly, the first couple of conflicts of the Fourth Shinobi World War are good. And not to mention when Madara comes back, holy cow, that's when things are really kicked off in a high gear. Actually, when Naruto completes his training, he fights Itachi and Nagato along with Killer Bee. Well, Killer Bee's on Naruto's side, obviously. And Madara comes back, and the 5 Kage. Like, there's a lot to good to talk about here. I don't want to spoil it for any of you, but seriously, if you haven't read the manga, check it out. I'll put a link to Mark's video down below. And other than that, I guess I can talk about the thing I alluded to earlier. Here's the thing. When it comes to sports, I am a football guy, through and through. That's not to say there aren't other sports that I like. It's just that on any given Sunday afternoon or weekday night, whenever a sport is on, if that's the case, I'm going to watch football. It's rare that, I'm truly glued to anything else unless it's that specific time of year, such as the case March Madness, college basketball. This weekend was the Final Four, and I alluded to how last night, obviously the Final Four, it's the semifinals. It was Kansas City Jayhawks versus Villanova. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forget what Villanova was, but that was the show before the show. The show was like, even if you're not a fan of college basketball, of the Duke-UNC rivalry. It's one of the biggest in the country. I would put that in my top 20 biggest rivalries in all of sports if I ever really came up with any kind of list like that. It'd probably be like top 20. It's that famous. What makes this especially, heart-wrenching is Coach K of Duke. This was his final season. And honestly, even though I picked Baylor to win it all, when the narrative for Coach K got better, and obviously Baylor lost, I was pulling for Duke. I was. And his final game wasn't just a loss. He didn't make it to the final. He lost in the Final Four to UNC of all teams. I just feel so horrible for the guy. I mean, again, I'm not the biggest expert on college basketball. I want to state that outright. But, it doesn't mean I don't pay attention to some things. And needless to say, Coach K has had a significant impact on the history of college basketball. In fact, you can almost not be able to get away with. You can't get away with telling the story of college basketball without talking about Coach K. Like, that guy's going to live on forever, fondly. Like, if there's a college basketball Hall of Fame, he's going in there, no doubt. And it's funny. Duke UNC really is a rivalry, like a heated rivalry. But for the most part, throughout the entire history of this rivalry, UNC has quite a substantial number more wins than Duke does. However, the narrative somewhat began to change back when Coach K was around. And no kidding, Coach K's overall record against UNC was 50-50. Yes. He faced off against Duke, or he faced off against UNC overall exactly 100 times. He won half of them and lost half of them. I don't know if you can find any better writing than this, man. But regardless, congratulations to UNC. Congratulations to all the teams that played in March Madness. But now that we're at the finals, congratulations to UNC. Congratulations to Kansas. I need to give it some time before I pick who I want to win overall, because I'm convinced that, Duke UNC, that was the final right there. But we're not really going to know until, I think, tomorrow evening. So, can't wait. Like, favorite, share, hit the subscribe button, follow me on social platforms, YouTube. I'm very home. This video for all of you guys watching. Joe for today. Will be a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. Oh, happy Sunday, everyone. And remember, if you guys want to talk, James will be here to lend and always have your back. Take care and make good choices. See ya.